So we've gotten to a new chapter called cheat code. This cheat code, let's just open it. It's an interesting puzzle. So you finish most of the games on the latest console, but there is one game resisting you. It is ridiculously hard. Turn on your pad and don't put it down until you've hacked your way to the top. So let's see what is actually hard. Start infiltrating system pattern detected. So the title says bring some order. So what we are trying to do here is CBA, the output is ABC, DGEHF, output DEFGH. So what we are trying to do here is to sort the array given. So I'm recommending, if you are trying to solve this puzzle, please try and solve it before watching this video, because a lot of things that I'm going to be doing here are going to sound like a magic, or I'm going to sound like a magician. Please try and solve this puzzle, or if you've attempted to solve the puzzle and you feel like okay, you didn't get anything, then you can watch this video, but try and solve this puzzle. Please, I'm begging you, so that you won't just see the solution and then feel as if you understand it. Try to solve it is going to make you understand a lot of other techniques out there that I've not even explored in this puzzle, in this game. So let's start. So the first thing we have in mind is this is an array, so we are going to loop through it, and looping through it, we are going to use it to solve it. So the first thing is that we see this array. Let me explain the conceptual uh, code, the part of the code. So what I'm seeing here is the first thing I would do is to first loop through it, take C, I'll pick the first element, then loop through the remaining elements and try and compare C with the remaining elements and then swap their positions. As simple as that. That is what we're going to do in the code. So we are going to do two loops, which is like the big O notation for O n square. I don't think there's any other optimizable way of doing it rather than doing it that way. If you have any magical way of doing it, please let me know in the comments. But the best way in solving this puzzle, or is sorting an array using loop, is by using the two loop. That is the big O notation of O n square. Please, if you don't know what big O notation is, you can make research about it. That is the fundamental of data structures and algorithms. So let's get started. Let's dive into the code and see what we get. I've attempted to solve this code. I've tried to solve it. That's why you see this time is like 21 minutes. So I've like solved it like multiple times so that I can explain it better. So the first thing we need to do is loop through the array. We have two functions or two types of loop here, two way of looping through an array. We have the while loop and the for each loop. So the first one we are going to use is the for each loop. We are going to loop through the array, then when we pick the value, the first value, then we're going to loop through the remaining values in the array. So let's pick the for each loop. You can even use the while loop, but I'm going to use the for each loop. So let me do for each C in input, for each element in our input. So I'm going to assign two variables, variable A, that is the first element, variable A equals 0. Then I will assign the second variable, which is variable B, equals 1. So variable A, so let me go back to this. Variable A is 0. So if I do input 0, I'm going to get C. If I'm doing input 1, I'm going to get B. Let's practicalize it here. Input 0, I'm going to get, you see our output is C. If I do input 1, you see our output is B. So we can use this index to pick a value in our array. That is why I'm assigning variable A to 0, that is the first value, assigning variable B to 1, that is the second value. So we are going to, then we can now swap or compare the two um, elements. So let's clear this. Now that we've assigned these two variables, let's loop through the remaining values in our array. So let's say yb is less than the input dot length. So we are using the while loop here. So then we can now say then we can now compare the two values. So let's compare the two values, this C and B. How do we compare C and B? We say if input A, variable A, is less than or greater than input B, that's how we compare it if they are actually greater than each other. So if you don't know, let me tell you, C is actually greater than B. The way we have it alphabetically, we also have it the way we have it numerically, we also have it alphabetically. So as you are going from left to right, you are incrementing by 1. So as 2 is greater than 1, B is greater than A. 3 is greater than 2, C is greater than B. So as you are going from left to right, you are incrementing by 1. So using that same method logic, we have it here. We know that Z is greater than W. W is less than X, just the way we have it. If you are going from A to Z, you are incrementing by 1. So let's compare the values here. Let's say, so before I compare the value, I want to make sure that if A and B are the same value, I don't want to run this function, or I don't want to run this loop. So let me add that logic there, that boundary there. If variable A is actually is not equals to, if variable A is not equals to variable B, that is when you should run this code. But if they are the same thing, let's say variable A is 0 and variable B is 0, don't run this code, because if you compare C, if C equals to C, then there's no point comparing C equals to C, because it's actually going to give you C is actually equals to C, so you don't have to compare it. So that's why I'm adding this stuff here. If we eventually have variable A and variable B to be the same thing, we don't want to compare the value, we just want to move on to another value and compare. So if variable A is not equals to variable B, then we now say if input variable, which one should we compare? If input variable A is greater than input variable B, then perform this code, make a swap. At this point, this is where we want to swap C and B. If when we know that C is greater than variable B, we want to swap it. Then again, when we know that C is greater than A, we swap it. So that is how we move C to this last part and move A to this first part. So how do we swap? Swapping techniques is is a very interesting technique. So let me explain. So when you want to swap between two values, you are going to introduce a temporary value. This temporary value is going to hold variable A. You assign variable B to variable A, then you assigned variable A to this temporary value. So let me just write the code and explain it. So our temporary value is going to be variable D, and we are going to assign it to our input variable A. Then we can now swap, because we've already retained this value somewhere. So when we swap, how do we swap? We can say variable A is equals to variable B. I mean input variable B rather. So we've swapped the first one, let's complete the swapping. Then we'll now say variable b, input variable b is equals our temporary value variable d. Now we've successfully swapped b and c. So now that we've swapped b and c, we don't have to do anything again. Our code is done. All we just have to do is to make sure we don't run into infinity loop. So how do we make sure we don't run into infinity loop? By incrementing our value. I can just come here and say a plus plus b plus plus b plus plus. You see our infinity loop warning is gone. All we can now do is to return variable to return our input. Before we return our input, by the time I return our input, our code will successfully run. But before I return our input, I want to make sure you understand this code. So look at this code. What do? We loop through the every element in the input. We assign variable a to 0, variable b to 1 because we want to swap between two values. So let's say this is variable a, this is variable b. We want to swap them. So this is 0, this is 1. So we go through our while loop and say while, because we are looping through the remaining value. We've selected c. Now I want to loop through b and a. That is why I'm saying while variable b is less than input.length. If variable a is not equals to variable b, I'm adding this condition so that we will not like run a redundant swiping. So that in case we have variable a and variable b to be the same value, we don't want to run this code. So by the time we say okay, since we know that variable a and variable b are not the same value, we now create another condition check and say if variable a, input variable a is greater than input variable b. That means if in this scenario now, if z is greater than x, swipe. These 3 lines of code is the one we are using to swipe. If you don't know how to swipe, please drop a comment. Just drop comment or question, then I can explain better. But these 3 lines of code is what we use for swiping. First we did is we assign a temporary value to a. We can also assign it to b as long as we know what we are doing. I assigned it to input variable a so that I keep it. I say d, please help me keep this value. Then input variable a, I then assign it to b. I assign it to input variable b. Now input variable a is not the same thing as d any longer because I've already assigned it to another value. Then input variable b is the one still retaining its value. Now I want to assign it back to the previous value of a, which d is currently holding. That's why I assigned it to a. Now we've successfully swiped the value of a and b. So we move on to the next line of code, which is like incrementing our variable a and variable b. I hope you understand. If you don't, please let me know in the comment section. So now we are returning our input and you see that our code has successfully run. This is a very tricky, interesting, hard puzzle. I hope you enjoy it. For me, it took me a very long time to get it. Why back then? I think around 2015 that I was solving it. It took me a very long time to solve it. But now, I'm a pro. This is 2022, 6 years. I'm a pro. I can just close my eyes and solve this anytime, any day. So this is an important part of learning. So, and this is what like I use then to train myself in improving my skills in data structures and algorithm. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, if you have a question, drop a comment. See you in the next video. Thank you very much. So let's see that we run our code. Yeah, our code is running. Bye.